Hi everybody, it's Mr. B, Hayfield Secondary School, and this is video 2 of the Balsa Bridge project. It's in the Structures Unit, Civil Engineering. Yes, you know by now, it is not a balsa bridge, it is a basswood bridge. It applies to balsa bridges as well, but I actually gave you guys basswood to take home and work with. You'll notice it's significantly stronger than balsa wood. You can build these bridges out of balsa or basswood, but we usually use basswood for the bridges because it's a little bit stronger. Okay, so where we left off the last video was we talked about doing the design, and I had drawn my design on my graph paper, and then I said I needed to draw another one just like it because bridges have two sides. So there you go. I got two of them. Now we are going to get this covered up with wax paper because we're going to be gluing our wood right on this design. So right where these lines are, let's see what I'm doing, we're going to be gluing that wood. And so we don't want to glue right to the paper because it'll stick like crazy. So we use wax paper to cover it up. All right, camera's going down to the project. Here we go. So, real simple. We'll take off some wax paper. You have wax paper in your kit. And you cover up the board, your project, and you want a little bit hanging off of each end. Now, you only wanted an inch or so. I actually got way too much there, so I'm going to trim it off a little bit. You just want about an inch hanging off over each end. And the way we're going to get this on here, make sure the wax paper is lined up at the top and the bottom without wrinkles. Flip it over, all right? Fold the end over on one end to really get by with just a single piece of tape right there. And then just make sure you kind of pull on this end to get the wrinkles out of it. All right, should be nice and smooth. And get the wrinkles out after you give it a little tug. And if you flip it over, it should be pretty smooth, okay? Now, I only put one piece of tape at the top and the bottom of the paper, and one piece of tape, couple pieces of tape on the back. I might put a couple more just to keep this stuff from flopping around, but should be fine. All right, now, the first thing we have to do, if you've built towers before, especially in my class, I've told you how many times how it's important to build the frame first because you can't start building the inside until you have the frame. So we are actually going to build the frame on both of the sides before I worry about the inside, okay? And let me show you how we're going to do that. So we're just going to take a piece of wood. Oh, here's one. And I just line it up. You need a pencil. Make sure you have a decent point on the pencil. Line it up, lay it right down on that line, exactly. So it's right on the end there and right on the end here. And I'm going to put a mark right there at the end. Now when I cut this wood, I'm just going to use scissors. If you have an X-Acto knife or some other cutting device, that's completely up to you, but I'm using scissors. And when you cut, just leave a little bit of that line. You don't want to cut right on the line because then your wood would actually be a little bit too short. So I line it up and that looks pretty good. And I'm just going to take a little piece of tape. Now in the project book, in the bridge book, in this guy, okay, you see them using all kinds of pins. Now these are a popular way to hold down the wood with all these little pins. We're not using those. I didn't send pins home because actually I don't really care for them very much because they have a tendency to come out and also makes it very difficult to store your project. with all these pins sticking up all over it. And pins always end up on the floor, and I'm always concerned sending something like that home, having pins on the floor, and having a pet or maybe a younger sibling crawling around and getting a hold of one of those pins. So I just use a little piece of masking tape. It works very, very well. Now, what I had left over from the piece I just cut is not long enough to do that whole side, but I'm sure as heck not going to get rid of this because I've got lots of wood to cut on here. All right, so I'm going to do the bottom. And actually, this one's a hair too short. That's pretty funny. But I'm saving it, of course. I'll have lots of opportunities to use this. Line it up really well on this end, and then on the long end, put a mark. And again, when I cut it, I'm gonna leave a little bit of that line. There we go. Put it in place, and I'm going to secure it with a small piece of tape. Line it up really good first, and then secure it with a small piece of tape. Just one piece. I see students put tape all over the place. Okay, it's completely not necessary, and it will totally get in your way. Okay, some of the short pieces that we're laying around. I want to save the long piece. Always use your shortest pieces first. And I'm going to work, oh, you can't see that. I'm going to work on this end down here. I'm going to place the wood inside the frame. So it's going to be a butt joint up there. All a butt joint is when two pieces come up, one butts right into the other. Yeah, I know what you're all thinking, probably giggling. It just means just butt it up against each other. And I'm going to line it up, put a mark where I want to cut it. And you'll get the idea. Take your time with your measurements. Now, I've done this quite a few times, so I'm able to move pretty quickly. I don't expect you to move that quickly. Okay, that's a good fit, so I want to glue it in place right now. Here's my trusty glue bottle. Believe it or not, this glue bottle is like 2 or 3 years old. It still works just fine because whenever it wasn't being used, we closed the applicator tap, and then periodically I clean off the excess glue on it. 2 or 3 years old, has built many, many towers and bridges, and it still works just fine. We want a small amount of glue, and we want to get that glue, come on glue, we want to get that glue between the two joints, just like we did on our Delta Dart, and you really just want a drop on each end. You don't need a whole lot. Putting tons of glue on your structure will not make it any stronger. All it'll do is make it heavier. So once it's lined up properly, I'm going to put a little bit of pressure on it. Squeezing it together like that. Because when you put pressure on two things that are being glued together, it increases the strength of that glue bond a lot. And usually you have to hold it for a few seconds. All right. Now you may want to put a piece of tape on it to hold it in place, or you may not, but I'm going to put one. And I'm not putting it on there really hard. I'm just trying to hold it in place. And then I will move down. I'm going to flip this around. I'm going to move down and do the piece at the other end. And again, it's just a butt joint on one end. It's actually going to be a butt joint on both ends. We're not doing any mitered cuts or beveled cuts at all. We're certainly not doing any complicated mortise joints. One, the material's too small for that, and two, that is definitely an advanced level technique. Got this piece cut. Put a nice little drop of glue there, nice little drop of glue there. And I am going to show you a trick in just 1 second about this glue. Line it up. It's lined up nicely, and some pressure. So students sometimes go, oh, it's going to take me forever to build this bridge. No, it's not. It really isn't. You can see how quickly I've gotten this frame done. Now, the inside does go slower. I will grant you that. And I think I'll put a little piece of tape here. And I'm actually going to put a teeny bit of glue right here, small amount, because it didn't look like it got in between the two pieces of wood very well. Small amount. Look how small. Really just a teeny drop. All you want. Okay? And then I'm going to move on, and I'm going to do the frame around this one. Okay? Just like I did here. And then I'm going to stop until the frames are really well dried and I can start working on the interior section. So that is where this video is going to end. Is what we did here was that we, end of video 1, we had our design completed. Into video 2, we came in and we covered up our design with wax paper. All right, and then we did our frame. We're going to do our frames for both sides before we start working on the web or the net inside of the frame. You want to do the frame first because the frame has to really be set up nicely before you start putting pieces of wood on the inside. Okay, so that's where this video is going to end. This would be video 2. Video 3 will come back. Both frames will be done, and we'll start working on putting the pieces inside of the we call it the web or the net. I've heard it called both things. I think web sounds better. Anyway, we'll be working on the web, the part that goes inside the frame, okay? So, hope that works for you. Again, just follow the tips and tricks. Oh, I did say I was going to teach you a little trick. I'll teach that in the next video. You don't really need it for this one. It's a little trick about how to make the gluing go easier because you got a lot more gluing to do in the next video with all these pieces in the web, okay? So see you in the next video.